Hi, I'm Chloe. This is Entertainment Talk Now, and today we will be reviewing Amazon Prime Video's Bliss. Released on February 5th, 2021, this film is produced by Amazon Studios, directed by Cahill, and stars Owen Wilson as Greg, Salma Hayek as Isabel, and Nesta Cooper as Emily. So, to give a quick synopsis on this film, Bliss is a mind-bending love story following Greg, who after recently being divorced and then fired, meets the mysterious Isabel, a woman living on the streets and convinced that the polluted, broken world around them is just a computer simulation. Doubtful at first, Greg eventually discovers that there may be some truth to Isabel's wild conspiracy. Now, let's unpack this movie. So, I'm going to start with the good. I like the overall concept. I like everything that has to do with the mind. We're talking about mind-altering things. We're talking about diving into the mind, understanding the mind. I wouldn't say exploiting the mind, but anything mind-related fascinates me. So I really, really like this concept. The cinematography behind the entire storyline, it grabbed me in. It was rolled out so seamlessly that at some points within the film, I forgot that it was actually drugs. Like I was actually starting to believe like, okay, this was a real thing. And it was mainly because of Isabel. Salma Hayek's acting is so, it's just, she's so believable during the whole, up until the end. She's just so charming that she just, keeps pulling you in. Then another good thing that I really liked was the differences between the two worlds. So they really did not want you to be confused about what was going on and where. There was distinct color saturation between the world that we live in now, which can be compared to the Matrix, and then the real world, what Isabel calls the real world. The color saturation in the real world was just, it was beautifully done, I'll say that. But I want to know where this was. If you know where it was shot, comment that below. Comment below where the real world was shot. It looks like it was somewhere in Europe. But yes, the colors were just, they popped really, really nicely. And I mentioned another thing I liked was Salma Hayek's acting. Not to say anything about Owen Wilson. He's amazing. But Salma really carried this film. This was her film. So the things that I feel like we can critique. First of all, the entire ending. The entire ending. I was confused, thoroughly confused. Most of the movie I was pulled in. I was believing this was real, and then, of course, drug induced. But then when we start to see how they go to their real world, it just seemed more real, like actually real, like she was really onto something. But then, you start seeing as the movie unfolds, it gets close to the end, you start seeing how there's holes in her story. Obviously, they took drugs to get there, so this is a drug-induced world. This is not real. And then, you start seeing she doesn't really know what she's doing. The dosage is theoretical. It was just the drugs the entire time. One thing that made me think that it was real was the thought visualizer or the thought visualizing machine. How would she know about what that was if this world wasn't real? Because he had never mentioned that to her at all, and then it just came up within their world. I don't know. Very convincing. Another thing that led to the confusion was Isabel. We don't know if she just disappeared back into her world or if she just dropped dead right there or overdosed. Like we don't know. So that was a little disappointing to me, because I feel like if you're not going to give me a sequel, just wrap it up. And I don't think there's going to be a sequel to this. But if you're not going to do that, just tell me what it is. Don't leave me hanging like that. And then another thing that kind of like, you know, I didn't too much like Greg's or Owen Wilson's character, Greg. He reminds me a lot of Jerry on Rick and Morty. So if there are any Rick and Morty fans, you know the episode where him and Beth go to counseling and there are beings that formulate based on the way that they see each other. And Jerry's being is like a worm blob that just whines and cries the entire time, very weak. That is similar to how I see Greg. So he loses his job. He just sits there, takes it, right? I mean, you know, after he kills the guy. So he sits there and takes the fact that he gets fired. He doesn't even fight for it. And then he leaves the building. He leaves his job, leaves his wallet on the desk, right? Just walks off with this random woman he doesn't even know and has no fight in him. He's just like, well, yeah, just sell my phone. This is the only way that I talk to my kids, but, you know, you could just sell it. Yeah, I lost my job. I live in a motel and, you know, I don't have any fight in me anymore, so I'm just going to live with you, homeless person. Like, come on. Like, you know, you get knocked down, but you got to get back on your feet, especially when you have children, right? So that was one thing. And then they're in the skating rink and someone disrespects Isabel and he doesn't do anything about it. He just kind of stares at him and then uses his powers to make him fall. And then the part where they're walking down the street and a van pulls up and, you know, they're taunting them. Initially, he's walking behind Isabel, but then he rushes up next to her like, oh, save me. Oh, it was just wasn't a good look. I wasn't too thrilled with Owen's character as Greg. Other clues that made me realize that this was not actually real was when she went to Kendo. I think his name was Kendo or Kenzo. I think his name's Kendo. When she went to his place to re-up on the yellow crystals, he sees Greg standing outside and he says, who's that? Is he real? But then when they take the blue crystals and they go to the real world, Kendo is sitting in the chair next to Greg, like a few people down from Greg. So if they're in that same room in the real world, they're hooked up to the brain box, wouldn't Kendo know who Greg is if it was real? Wouldn't he be familiar with him? If him and Isabel have such a close relationship, wouldn't she know that that was her man? Or wouldn't he know that that was her man? Right? And then another thing that gave it away for me was her boyfriend or her ex-boyfriend, the guy that she was with when she initially met Greg at the bar. She says, oh, well, my ex, he's in the bathroom. I need you to go get my necklace from him. And he's passed out on the ground next to the toilet. So if Greg was her actual soulmate, right? Wouldn't she already know that? Wouldn't she already know him or recognize him when she first saw him in the bar? To me, it just looks like she just lost that boyfriend that she had. He was passed out and she needed somebody else to leech on. So that's another thing about Salma Hayek's character, Isabel, is Greg wasn't her actual soulmate. She just needed somebody to be codependent with and leech onto them because she wanted someone to be kind of like in her world with her. She didn't want to be alone. So she just found the first guy that she saw and just kind of pulled him into her tricks and her mess. And that's the movie. So another thing that I wanted to mention was I feel like this movie is a mashup between Limitless with Bradley Cooper and Holiday Heart with Ving Rhames and Alfred Woodard. I know it's weird. I know these are two totally different movies. Hear me out, okay? Hear me out. So Limitless with Bradley Cooper, obviously because of the mind-altering drugs. You know, it takes you from a Matrix-looking world into a world that's more vibrant, it's more lively. Things are really happening, right? It's more enjoyable. But it's temporary. Then Holiday Heart, because we have the relationship between Greg and his daughter, right? So in Holiday Heart, this is an older movie, but the difference was we're looking at the story very objectively. We have a bird's eye view, right? We're looking at it from above. We're seeing, you know, what's happening with all the characters. In this movie, in Bliss, we're looking at a similar story with a parent on drugs with their child, but it's from the eyes of the drug user. But it's, you know, it's similar. It's a similar concept. So I thought that was interesting. The whole time I'm looking at it, I'm like, this reminds me of Holiday Heart. So let's rate this film. Overall, 5 being you need to click off this video as soon as I'm done and watch it on Prime Video right this instant. And 0 being I would rather pluck my eyes out than watch this. I'm going to give this movie a 4. I think it was done beautifully, masterfully. I think the cinematography is on point. The storyline and concept are very intriguing and it grabs you in. Also, I think the acting was amazing as far as Salma Hayek is concerned. Owen was great as well, but Salma really carried this movie. This was her film. I say it's not a 5 because I don't think this is a film that I would tell anyone to go out and see it right this very instant. It's going to make a huge impact on your life. It's going to change your thought perspective. I mean, it's interesting. It's what I like. It's sci-fi. I love sci-fi movies, especially anything that has to do with the mind. But I mean, it's good, but it's not, you know, I'm not gonna rush anybody out to see it. So it's a nice watch. It's a good watch. I'd recommend it. I do recommend it. So have you seen this movie? What do you think? What are your comments about the daughter? They didn't really speak on the daughter too much, but what do you think of his relationship with the daughter and how she just keeps fighting for her dad, which was sweet, but it was very sad to watch. What are your thoughts on Salma Hayek, her performance? Owen, what do you think? Comment below. And until next time, my next review, I will see you later. Bye-bye.